The palace courtyard shimmered under the warm dusk, and every rose bush seemed to hold its breath as Sheikh Hamdan stepped forward, heart thundering louder than the ceremonial drums. All day the air had buzzed with unspoken anticipation, but now the hush was absolute, as if the whole kingdom wished to witness this moment through a single shared gaze. He felt the weight of tradition on his shoulders, yet felt lighter than the birds wheeling overhead. He knew destiny could be daunting, but tonight it tasted like freedom, like sunlight after a year-long night. In his pocket waited the handwritten vows, ink still smelling of midnight resolve, and in his soul bloomed a certainty so fierce it silenced every ghost of doubt. Silken banners fluttered, echoing the pulse of a people eager for joyful headlines, and the courtyard lanterns bowed low, spraying warm constellations across polished marble. He saw familiar faces, loyal guards, childhood tutors, the poet who had once compared his laughter to wind over desert dunes. But in that sea of smiles his eyes searched only for the woman who had rewritten his future with a single word: yes. When she appeared at the archway in ivory and moon-shadow lace, time folded upon itself. Every story he had told around campfires, every oath he had whispered to restless horses, every silent prayer he'd sent to a sky without reply. Suddenly all of it made sense because it led him to her. The royal herald cleared his throat, his scroll trembling ever so slightly, but Sheikh Hamdan raised a gentle hand, choosing his own voice over the gilded parchment. He spoke of journeys that begin in secrecy and end in sunlight, of courage that grows quiet rather than loud, of love that is less a thunderclap and more an eternal tide reshaping the shore. Each word unfurled like a banner of its own, and it felt as though the city's very foundations vibrated with approval. He watched her eyes glisten, saw her lips part in silent wonder, and he vowed that even if storms came tomorrow, he would still fight to keep that wonder safe. He recalled the hidden nights spent drafting letters he never dared to send, times when his station seemed a wall thick as any fortress. Yet she found a door in that wall and opened it with a single look of belief. He told the assembly how she answered his stumbles with stillness, his doubts with deliberate calm, teaching him that leadership is never louder than love. With every syllable, the hush deepened, swelling into a reverent silence too sacred to measure, and in that quiet he felt the entire kingdom breathe as one. A single golden string of music slipped into the night, a lone oud tracing melodies older than ink, and suddenly the courtyard was a living dream. The fragrance of jasmine lifted, the moon crowned the minarets, and Sheikh Hamdan's pulse settled into a rhythm older than history. He reached for her hand, marveling again at how perfectly it fit in his own, as though carved by the same timeless artist who sculpts the dunes. Their fingers intertwined, and every ring-less knuckle carried the promise of new beginnings. He declared, in tones firm yet tender, that today was not just a royal decree but a covenant between two beating hearts and everyone who believed in them. He thanked the elders for their wisdom, the children for their awe, the courtiers for their patience, and then he turned to her and thanked her for rewriting what he thought love could be. At that, a hush deepened into a collective sigh, like the desert after rain, hushed yet brimming with secret life. The official seal, a crimson falcon over swirling calligraphy, waited upon a scroll at the foot of the dais. With hands that no longer trembled, he pressed his signet into warm wax, feeling the ancient weight of forefathers but also the fresh wind of tomorrow. When he passed the ring-handled pen to her, the gesture felt both revolutionary and inevitable, a final link in a chain of shared dreams. As her signature blossomed beside his, a hush turned into jubilant thunder, as though the very stones cheered new history into being. Fireworks burst above, scattering jeweled sparks across the velvet sky, but inside the circle of his arms their world grew small and infinite all at once. He spoke softly so only she could hear, promising to build mornings where her laughter would be the kingdom's anthem, evenings where moonlight would turn worries to dust. She answered with a whisper of her own, a vow threaded with daring and devotion, and the night itself seemed to lean closer, greedy for such sweetness. Trumpets announced the proclamation to every distant district, carrying tidings of a union not merely political but poetic. In gold-limbed streets, strangers hugged, in quiet kitchens, elders blessed bread, in moonlit courtyards, children traced hearts in the sand, spelling names they barely knew but already adored. Far beyond palace walls, shepherds paused, merchants smiled, and the sea answered with waves that glimmered like 1,000 mirrored lanterns. Back beneath the grand colonnade, he invited her to the first dance, though music already danced within them. They moved slowly, two constellations discovering new orbits, and for a heartbeat the world was nothing but the soft brush of silk and the echo of barefoot steps across marble. Around them, petals drifted, fluttering approval from any blossom ever kissed by dawn, and every candle dreamed of burning just a little longer to watch. The royal archivist, ink-stained, wide-eyed, scribbled fiercely, capturing details for future generations: how the air smelled like first rain, how the new princess wiped a tear yet never smudged her smile, how the future ruler folded her fingers over his knuckles as though she'd held them in lifetimes past. He recorded how the kingdom found its compass in a heartbeat, and how the night, though loud with celebration, still made room for quiet vows no scroll could fully capture. And when the final chorus rose and the moon dipped low, Sheikh Hamdan guided her to the balcony overlooking a city alight with lanterns like grounded stars. He whispered, "Finally I did it, and it's official now," but she shook her head, eyes bright as dawn, and answered, "No, my love, we did it." Their laughter mingled with the wind, sealing a promise that tomorrow's sun would rise upon a realm forever changed, one ruled not just by crown but by the unstoppable, official power of two hearts in harmony. Beyond the balcony, dawn tiptoed toward the horizon, smearing watercolor pinks across the sleepy sky, and Sheikh Hamdan felt the hush of a city holding its breath for the very first sunrise of their shared reign. They lingered there, shoulders touching, both quietly stunned by how softly history sometimes begins, with syllables traded like petals, with the steady cadence of two hearts beating in time. Down in the courtyards, servants gathered lanterns dimmed by daylight, yet in every small task lay the shimmer of purpose. Each bowed head knew that an ordinary morning had been reborn extraordinary. He turned to her, brushing a wind-tossed curl behind her ear, and for a long moment neither spoke, because wonder already spoke for them in a language deeper than vowels. Somewhere a dove cooed, and it felt like a hymn written just for their names. Soon the royal stables stirred awake, hooves striking rhythm against polished stone, and Hamdan led her there, wanting to show the other half of his heart, those swift-spirited horses who had carried his secrets on midnight rides. When the great bay stallion bowed its proud head to her open palm, he saw recognition flicker in the animal's dark eyes, as though even the desert wind acknowledged its new queen. Together they saddled the gentle mare she chose, shoulders brushing, laughter fluttering like banners in the still cool air. They rode out past the last marble arch, toward dunes that glowed like embers, and every stride drummed a promise. That sovereignty could gallop beside humility, and that power, when bridled by love, could race faster than fear. They dismounted at a lonely ridge where sand met sea, where turquoise waves folded secrets into shore. Standing barefoot, they let water swirl around their ankles, salt dampening silk hems and washing away the last traces of ceremony. Here, away from watchful eyes and herald calls, he slipped the signet ring from his finger and pressed it into the wet sand, carving a new crest beside hers, two initials circled by the endless loop of tide. "Let every future falcon learn to soar from here," he murmured, and she answered by lacing her fingers through his and guiding them both into a deeper wave, baptizing their promise beneath a sky now bright with noon. When they returned, sun-kissed and euphoric, the palace gates opened not with fanfare but with a chorus of spontaneous song. Cooks harmonizing from kitchen doors, scholars chanting blessings from shaded colonnades, gardeners lifting blooms high like colorful torches. It felt less like a homecoming and more like the birth of a new anthem, and he realized that the official decree mattered only because it unlocked such gentle rapture in ordinary hearts. As afternoon light poured through stained glass windows, dust motes whirled like tiny planets around them, and he drew her close in the grand hall where their portraits would someday hang. "We will measure triumph not by battles won," he vowed softly, "but by how many mornings begin with this much hope." She rested her head against his shoulder, the future blooming silent but certain inside their intertwined shadows, and the kingdom, sensing the pulse of a fresh era, exhaled one long, luminous sigh of contentment. "Some days, I still set out 2 cups of tea, one for myself, and one for her, though she does not come." I placed the cup gently on the opposite side of the marble table in the courtyard where she used to sit. The breeze moves through the jasmine vines and the shadows of late afternoon fall just like they used to. I pretend for a moment that she's only gone for a while, that she's out tending to some soul who needs her more than I do right now. But in that silence, I hear her anyway. She speaks to me now not through words, but through the spaces she once filled, the stillness of a room, the weight of a pause, the breath before a decision. In her absence, I have become more present. She stripped me of my need to impress and left me with a desire to impact. I find myself walking slower, listening longer, and caring deeper. When people come to me now, young poets, grieving mothers, hardened warriors, I no longer offer them solutions first. I offer them space, as she offered me, because she taught me that sometimes, transformation does not come from answers but from being heard. And now, I write fewer declarations and more dialogues. Fewer laws, more letters. Because she taught me that the human heart changes more by a whisper than a roar.